Hello and welcome back to the From Start to CEO podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, just to outline what this is really it's a creative space where we learn from different business owners about their journey and where they've been and ultimately what has led to where they are today. In this episode, I speak to Ted Stanley, who is the writer, producer and sort of founder of Hammond House. During our conversation, we speak about his background around his work and where he is today. And we also highlight his journey through acting, entrepreneurship and community projects. And honestly, the key takeaways that you will most likely take from this and what the conversation I had and took away from it is the purpose of building a community first environment, and we talk about his highs and lows and sort of where it led to where he is today, but I'm really looking forward to getting the episode. So yeah, let's get started. So hi Ted, thank you again for coming on. I do really appreciate it. Usually how we start the podcast episodes is we start off speaking about story and where you're almost, I know you don't like to think of yourself as a business owner, but where your business sort of stemmed from. Yeah, so that'd be great, sort of to start off a little bit about you and your story, where it got where you are today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I was born in Sheffield, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a northern steel town in England, and I left school at 15. And you had two choices, basically. You either went into the pits or you went into the steelworks, and it usually depended on what your family had done before you. And in my case, it was the steelworks. And my first job was fetching the beer for the guys who worked in the Bessemer furnaces. And they used to manhandle white hot ingots of steel straight from the furnaces, and put them under steam hammers and turn them, and it was very hot work, and therefore they got a beer allowance. Now, whether giving people handling white hot steel alcohol was a good idea, I don't know.
I was going to say there.
That was the policy at the time, and it was very hot work. They were generally stripped to the waist, very little safety clothing, gloves and chaps, a bit like cowboys, like leather chaps to protect their legs. And so that was my first year, was fetching and carrying beer and anything else they wanted for there. And and at 16, I was promoted to one of the teams. So I got on the team, and I was one of the team of 4 people who were handling these ingots, and someone else fetched beer for me. So that was
were you able to drink at 15 back then?
Yeah. We weren't in a pub, you know. They turned up with a tray of beer, and you just helped yourself. So you know, no one really cared, or you know, and it was it was probably not sensible having beer, but it was about dehydration. I mean, you were working in really hot conditions, and you needed liquid, and the liquid of choice for the steel workers of Sheffield was beer, and that's what we drank.
I would have thought that dehydrates you more, surely, because it's not like a great hydration beverage, is it?
We weren't conducting a scientific study at the time. So,
okay, yeah, sure.
So that was my first job, and nothing else was on the radar. You know, when you left school in those sort of towns, and this was 1959 when I left school, and I've probably still been doing that today. But the company, Firth Vickers, had a policy of providing opportunities for people on the shop floor to do a commercial training program where you went round the different departments in the steelworks, production planning, sales, distribution, stock control, and you learnt a little bit about each one of those departments. And you studied, you did a course at the local college in business studies at the same time, and the idea was to bring people along who understood the business and and provide opportunities for young people. So I went on this course, and that opened a whole new world of opportunities and a whole new circle of friends. So I completed the course, and I was offered a permanent job, but this was in the stock control stores, and I wanted to do sales or something more exciting. I've been on the phone talking to people all around the world who were ordering steel, and this was really exotic and exciting to me. So so going back and working in the stores didn't really appeal. So at that point I left and started to do all sorts of other things, and got involved with students at the local university. Met a girl who was studying drama there. There's always a girl. And got friends with her friends, and started working with them on the drama they were doing. And I ended up producing the first two productions at the new drama studio on Norfolk Street in Sheffield. It was a converted church, and we put two productions on, and I brought in a graduate from the university, Ed Thomason, who directed the productions, and he went on to do the outreach programs for the Crucible Theatre, and that was where he went from there, and went around all the schools and did all the school outreach programs. So that was my first taste of theatre. I was given a small walk-on part as compensation for producing and organising this thing, and so I kind of got a taste for theatre, and developed from there. And from there on, I did various different jobs. I mainly sales at that time. I got a job selling central heating, and the company I worked for went bust, and so I was left without a job. So I got some of my sales colleagues together, and some of the guys who'd been doing the installations, and formed a new company, and we started doing our own central heating under something called a housewarming scheme, which was solid fuel central heating at that time, and you could get loans for it. So so it was an interesting business model, and it was by necessity that I couldn't afford to pay any wages, so everyone was on commission or on being paid to do the job, and that worked really, really well for about 3 or 4 years, and then the housewarming scheme that they had was pulled by the government, so there were no longer any loans, and the whole industry, or that industry, collapsed. And
is business something you've always, like, you mentioned there quite early on that you were involved in starting this business in something completely different from what you're doing now. Has business always, what was it that drew you to setting up your own business almost? Because a lot of people, especially listeners who are listening to this, are startups, and it can often be quite scary doing that. So what's the reason you felt actually more confident and comfortable doing that rather than going down the career route?
Well, I wouldn't say I was confident and comfortable. I was just out of work, and this was an easy solution. I suppose you start to recognise business opportunities, if you like, and this to me was an opportunity, and also it was better than working for somebody else, which I had been. And,
that's what I quite like. Is with what I've noticed with the web design and the marketing, I've found quite a nice little niche where I'm in right now with my web design services. So it's almost, I noticed the opportunity and the amount of space in the market where I can actually fit in and do something I really enjoy as well.
I mean, it is a risk, and it's, you are generally working harder. If you actually worked out your hourly rate, sometimes it wouldn't be very good.
I don't even, it's scary to think about my hourly rate at the minute.
that you have control over your own destiny, and I think
Yeah.
that's the key, and that's the attraction to it. And also, it enabled me to earn money to do the things I wanted to do, which was more about creative activities and more about staying involved with the theatre and music. I learned three chords on a guitar. And joined a local band, and that was great fun. And
Yeah.
so, this was the 60s, and anything was possible,
Okay.
and there was so much going on, so much creative stuff going on that you could get involved in was quite amazing. And there were no barriers then to it, and no one was particularly good, so you could get away with not being
Yeah.
good.
So you almost less competition a little bit.
Yes, you'll be
Yeah.
involved in the process. I never developed further than doing three chords, and when the band I was with started playing slightly more complicated music, then they dropped me for something.
Oh, yeah. I bet. I'm guessing now, because obviously you do the music and you write your own music and do your own thing. I'm guessing you know more than three chords now.
Well, yeah, I still can't play more than three chords, but
Oh,
no, I have developed a little from them, but it was
yeah.
more about the crack then than the music. It was more about just being part of that local scene and playing the local clubs, and some of the guys in Sheffield at that time have gone on to great things. In particular, Dave Berry was a friend of mine who we used to knock around with. He had a hit single with a cover version of Memphis, Tennessee, so yeah, there were great times. I faded into obscurity and started doing other things.
Yeah. So how this all link into what you're doing today with Hammond House? So I know there's a range of different things that almost come off the Hammond House business, isn't it? Is that am I correct with saying that?
Well, first of all, it's not a business,
Yeah.
and it's a group of community organisations and people that grew out of University Centre Grimsby, and because I'd never been to university when I was younger, for my 70th birthday, I decided I would go to university. So I signed up for a creative writing degree at University Centre Grimsby. My wife at the time had just finished her degree in creative arts at Nottingham University and came out with a first. So it put me under a certain amount of pressure
Yeah, I bet.
to go and do something slightly more intellectual. So I joined this creative writing degree, and we were all writing all these things that we thought publishers would be knocking on our door to publish, and we realised by around the end of year two that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So we decided to set up our own publishing company and publish our own work. But because we hadn't got enough work to make a sensible volume, then we ran a little competition to get other writers to submit work, and we published our first volume, and that's kind of grown from that 3 or 4 students then into now competition. We have entries from 42 countries around the world last year. We have sponsors from the Arts Council, the Royal Society of Arts, and various other organisations, and it's just kind of grown from there. But it's not a business; it's a community of writers, and we all talk to each other all year, and eventually have a festival in February. We all get together, as many as we can anyway, and those who can't come in person, we do on video, like we're doing tonight, and we celebrate our craft. So that's really how Hammond House started, was from that. The other guys who started it with me, they all went off when they'd finished their uni course and followed their careers. I mean,
Is
they
there
were.
anyone still who you started with still in the what would you call it instead of a business? What would you call Hammond House?
It's a family of like-minded creative people,
Yeah,
who share an interest and who celebrate what we do and help each other to promote what we do. All we do is we facilitate things. We try and provide, like, you were talking about our art gallery. It's
yeah,
not a commercial gallery. It's a space that we have that we put exhibitions on each month from local artists. We don't charge them for it. They exhibit. If they sell something, we'll take a small commission to help cover the
yeah,
costs, but we take the commercial risk, not them. So our role really is at Hammond House is to provide opportunities for creative people, whether they're musicians or writers or artists, to get recognition for their work and their craft, and to try, if they can and if we can help, to actually earn a living from it, from
yeah.
something they love doing.
Is there a certain level? Because that strikes me as needing a certain amount of investment for the art gallery. Do you work with, say, for example, local councils? I know there was, as one of your channels, I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but they were funded with the National Lottery Heritage, wasn't it, as well, partnered with? So is
The
there a
National
certain level of
Heritage Fund our Heritage Channel, yeah,
yeah,
they've been absolutely marvellous, yeah. And talking of local councils, North East Lincolnshire Council are quite amazing at supporting local heritage and local creative people.
yeah,
They have a whole programme of support and different levels of support and different
yeah,
things they will support, and they've been marvellous to us. As the university have that I went to, they host our literary festival every year and really support us. So yeah, so I think if people see that what you're doing is for the common good,
yeah.
and it's not a money-making exercise, they're happy to come along and
Be a
support
part
what
of it.
we're doing. Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's what we try and do. I mean, the gallery costs us money each year,
yeah,
but do commercial work and use the profits from the commercial work to fund the things that aren't
okay,
profitable. Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. That makes
it's a
sense.
not-for-profit. But I suppose saying it's not a business, it certainly isn't a business in any way, shape, or form. But the principles of running a business have to apply.
Yeah,
We couldn't run this without applying business principles
yeah.
to it.
Because ultimately, it needs to make money at the end of the day to be able to do the stuff that you can do.
Yeah, yeah, and in order to do that, it needs to be efficient and it needs to run in a certain way. So, anything that I may have learned about business over the years is applied to this organisation that is not about business. It's
Yeah,
about other things, but to make it run efficiently, you still need to apply those sensible business
yeah,
skills and conduct risk management and make sure that you're resilient as an organisation and that you don't get overstretched,
yeah.
and you make sure you've got enough money to pay everybody at the end of the
Fair,
month.
fair wage. Yeah. Is so linking on the video production side, do you tend to work with bigger sort of businesses, or I noticed that you helped with the NHS with the vaccination campaign was one of the things you helped with.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, typically, what sort of businesses do you work with in that space?
we generally, again, don't work with businesses.
Yeah,
We work with public sector organisations and charities.
yeah,
And one of our sort of main tasks is to work with charitable organisations or not-for-profit organisations who are trying to achieve something themselves, and we use our skills as film producers to help them get where they want to be. So an example of that is there's an organisation called Linkage, which helps and teaches some of the most vulnerable people in our society, people with learning difficulties and that. And we've been working with them for a few years now. And we started off, they got a small grant from the local council, and they used a bit of that grant to pay us to produce a documentary about what they did. And then they used that documentary to apply for some more funding. And we did another documentary, and that sort of carried on. And the latest one, they've just got £5 million to redo Wheelsby Hall, which is an ancient hall on their site in Grimsby, and they've commissioned us to produce the documentary about that refurbishment. So we tend to work in partnership with organisations rather than it being a client supplier relationship. So we do a lot of work for the local council, and we're currently doing a series of programmes about the regeneration of the town centre. So this is public awareness campaigns, just like the NHS one was.
Do you publish the content on your channel specifically, or is it on channels for other people?
It's both, and one of the benefits that we can offer people who are commissioning us to do work is that we can, as well as producing the content for them, we can also broadcast it on our channels. So that means that if they produce if we produce a video for them and they put it out on their social media, it might reach, 500 people. Right? If we put it out on our TV channels and social media, we have access to 380,000 subscribers. Right? So that's part of in terms of a business model, that's part of the leverage we have. Right, for organisations who are saying, well, who should we commission to do this work for us? So I think it's following the basic principle of a business of having a unique selling point of some kind. Why should people come to you for their donuts or whatever, rather than going somewhere else? And it shouldn't be about price.
Something I wanted to touch on, sorry to cut you off there, I just wanted to make sure we touch on this point, because when we had a conversation before, something you spoke about was moving from TV onto more YouTube and putting videos out on there, and almost moving content from traditional broadcasting to where it is now. I just wanted to ask you, have you noticed, when was it you sort of noticed that shift, that actually moving more onto streaming platforms other than the traditional media, almost? Was there a time?
How we originally got involved in film and TV productions, I was asked to present an arts and culture programme for Channel 7, Estuary TV years ago, and which I agreed to do, and I ended up scripting it, presenting it, directing it, and eventually producing it. And it ran for about a year, and we had some good reviews and good audience figures. But then the Estuary TV was sold, so the channel changed. I wasn't happy with the values, shall we say, of the people who'd taken it over. And I wasn't happy to put our programme out on their channel. So we said, well, why don't we give it a try online? What have we got to lose? We made the programme. So we set up a YouTube channel, and we examined all sorts of different other channels and that, complicated channels. And somebody said to me, which someone needs to sometimes, why are you doing that when most people watch things on YouTube? Why not on YouTube, So I said, okay. So we put it on YouTube, and we got hundreds times more the viewers on YouTube than we ever got on terrestrial TV. And we'd no idea that would happen until we actually tried it. And that ran, and then we started putting trailers for the program on Facebook. And we suddenly saw that there were more people watching the trailers on Facebook than were watching the actual program on YouTube.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, well, why don't we try putting the program out on Facebook as well as YouTube? So we did, and over probably a period of about a year, gradually all our viewers moved from YouTube to Facebook, and we got even more viewers than we had before. So it's a very rapidly changing situation, and you have to, keep an eye on what's happening. And in 2 years' time, we'll probably be broadcasting on TikTok, not
Well,
whatever is the thing at the time.
Content especially it's videos almost getting shorter, because it went through a stage where it moved on to YouTube, and you'd watch videos on there that are an hour long, and now typically the most things I see are about roughly like 20 minutes to half an hour maybe. But like when you're moving on to, you see the growing platforms like TikTok, you've got like Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, stuff like that are growing a lot more. They've got almost the max length of a minute, but most people are only engaged for 20 seconds. So it's almost, I can't remember the statistic, but it's something crazy, like way less than 5 seconds. That is people's attention span, especially when they're scrolling.
Unless you can grab their attention with what you're saying or showing. I mean, our program started off it's about 30 minutes, because it's a magazine program, so it has a lot of content, and we're now down to about 16, 17 minutes.
Yeah.
For the reason you've just said, because you need it for the attention. But we're just experimenting with reels. For teasers and tasters and that, and it's looking quite interesting. One of our projects at the moment is that we're working in partnership with Grimsby Town Football Club, and we're doing a documentary film about their history from 1878 to present day. It's quite a task.
That is quite a big time period, isn't it?
But they got an exhibition on this week, and they said, "Oh, can we just have a little trailer of what's to come?" So we put this trailer together. It's less than a minute, so our social media lead said, "Shall I put it out as a reel rather than as a normal thing?" I said, "Yeah, give it a try." And it's just gone berserk, with viewing figures. So now we'll be interested to see how long, what the average time span people actually spent watching it is. Is it 3 seconds, which is the norm, or is it longer? Did we manage to engage them enough for them to listen to it?
Well, it's almost a completely different form of video. It's almost, because obviously this podcast goes out on YouTube, but if you're watching the reels, they're completely different to how this is structured. So it's almost thinking it as a different video format, like entirely. It's so like, I guess it's jumpy is not the word, but quite to the point, and then going to the next point quick, and making sure if you don't have like 5 seconds where it's blank and you lose people's attention, because people just like scroll off straight away.
Yeah, I mean, my view is that I don't think you can say anything meaningful and valuable in 20 seconds. But what you can do is you can hopefully say something that interests people enough for them to go and then watch something that's interesting and valuable. And that's how we see reels, as not as a isolated thing in itself, but as a way of drawing people in to our channels and our programs. And I think that's where we're going. But I'm fortunate. I've got some great young creative people in our organisation, and they, they're constantly keeping in touch with what's going on and telling me what we should be doing, which is
giving you different ideas of stuff. I bet.
It's also, it probably sounds terribly sexist, but But you know, the best newspapers in the world do this. If you look at the Sunday Times, you'll always find a pretty girl on the front page. You
Yeah.
know, completely gratuitously sometimes. You know.
Yeah.
And for when we put our program out, we always put a pretty girl on the thumbnail.
It links back to, I think it's not sexist, but it links back into capturing people's attention. And it's like, it's almost depending what audience you're trying to attract with. Because say you're trying to attract a younger male audience, then obviously that links into that. So it's very much, it must be based on who is actually watching it and who it's actually capturing as well.
Yeah, it certainly, that's quite interesting because it's not, you would expect it to be mainly a young male audience that are attracted to it, but it's not. Our average viewing age is sort of 40 to 50.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you know, I think, you know, a pretty girl is attractive at any age, and not necessarily just to men, but you know, to women who admire another
Yeah.
woman who, you know,
Good
and
point.
they're not sexual in any way. They're just pretty girls, you know.
Yeah. Presentable.
Talking about music earlier, I work in collaboration with a lot of local artists in producing music, and I've worked with a lovely girl called Rachel McKenna for a number of years, who's a great singer-songwriter, and we sometimes put songs out in different versions. So I'll do the lead vocal, she'll do the harmonies and vice versa, and we'll put two versions out. And so she a couple of years ago, she suggested we had a competition to who could get the most views on our songs, right? So they both went out with Rachel McKenna and Ted Stanley on the thing, and she put a picture of something from the video on it. I put a picture of her on the front of mine. And needless to say, I got by far more
Views. Yeah. Yeah.
But she suggested I was cheating, but there we are anyway.
Yeah. Maybe. The something I wanted to speak about as well was just your highs and lows, both professionally and in business. I usually start off with the lows and then lead into sort of the high points. Is there anything in your business journey, any advice you might be able to give people based on lows you've experienced with you? I know not business journey, that's just the phrase I'm using, but any advice you can give people based on low points you might have felt during your journey of what you're doing now?
Well, business-wise, the low points in my life have been more about sort of personal experiences, the real low points. Business lows have just been inconvenient. You know, they're just another problem that you overcome. When the central heating business closed down, you know, you learn lessons from that, and the lessons I learned is about risk assessment, about looking at the what ifs, you know, and not taking precautions and not having plan Bs.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I do on any project, whether it's a business project or any other project, is do a risk assessment on it, right? So when we did the literary festival this year, we had a number of people booked, authors and that, to do workshops and things, and purely by complete chance, about 5 people had to pull out for illness or various other reasons. Unfortunately, we got backups on all of them. We got a backup on all of them. So it didn't interrupt what we were doing. But how do we, you know, the chances of that happening were pretty remote. You know, 1 or 2 people maybe. But so, you know, always have a contingency plan for anything that you're doing. Always have a backup plan, because whatever could go wrong at some point will, and you need to be prepared for it.
That's a good bit of advice, to be honest, because I think most people will the thing I hear a lot of the time is having no plan B, go and fall in, and almost having that mindset where you're all in. But actually, what you're saying is it's okay to have those backup plans just in case stuff does go wrong, and being prepared for it almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with our central heating business, we should have anticipated the fact that they may close down this housewarming plan thing and had other things, other things building up to replace it. But we didn't.
Yeah.
We just did it, and they're the things you learn as you go along, and hopefully you learn them and you apply them to the things you do in the future, which is what we do now. So the lows I've had haven't been desperate lows; they've just been
Inconvenient
challenges that you have to overcome.
What about the highs then? What high points have you sort of felt with everything you're doing? Are you at a high now with where you're currently at and what you're currently doing with the projects and people you're working with, or?
Yeah, it's probably the most satisfying time of my life now, because and as I say, we facilitate things for other people and for ourselves as well. I mean, I still write and I still make music and that, but for creative people, getting recognition for what they do is one of the most important things for their mental health, and to get them to continue doing what they're doing. And the most satisfying thing I get is each year at our literary festival is seeing writers from all around the world being applauded for the work that they do. Some of them have said they've never published anything in their life before, they've never won anything before, and seeing how much difference it makes to them. And people travel from all over. We had someone travel from Australia this year to get their prize.
Yeah, that's crazy. A long way, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, from Hungary came to get hit, and he was only highly commended. He wasn't even the main prize winner, but he came from Hungary to get his prize because he wanted that recognition. So that's the biggest, most satisfying part of my life, is seeing creative people like myself get recognition for what they do, whether it's an artist in our gallery or a writer in our book or a musician that gets gigs because we've recorded something for him and put it out there for people to admire.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for coming on this episode. I believe this will be the second episode coming out. I hope it keeps to that. So, thank you very much. I think, the conversations you have, and you're clearly very knowledgeable about what you do now. And I think people really benefit from learning from business. Well, I keep saying business owners, but I know you don't like the phrase. You're an entrepreneur. You are an entrepreneur. You have got to admit it a little bit. But I think learning from people who have done a range of different things is really inspiring. So thank you so much for coming on.
That's quite all right. Nice to meet you, Adam. Take care.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of From Start to CEO. I think throughout the conversation, the things that stood out to me was the powerful messaging around creativity, community, and sort of adaptability for change. If you'd like to listen or learn more about Ted and what he does, go to his website at tedstanley.uk. Also, please follow and share this podcast, especially if you're in environments with creatives or community-minded entrepreneurs. And the ultimate goal is to build a community around this entrepreneurship sort of starting up space. So it'd be great if you could share this with your community. And also, please, would you be able to leave a review on Spotify if you're listening on there, or even if you're not, if you could leave a review on Spotify or share on YouTube. It really helps with pushing us to the audience that we know we can help. So this has been From Start to CEO. My name is Adam Waters, and we'll see you in the next episode.